All right, welcome everybody. This is David Bush from growmyprofit.com, and I get a chance to interview a good friend, a friend that I've known since 2007. So it's been a little bit of over a decade of learning more about Austin Palmer, our guest today, and his amazing business success, as well as just his great leadership and some of the things that he's done with his success of his business and leading other people and helping so many people, including some of the charitable organizations that he's involved with. And so today we get a chance to learn a little bit more about you, Austin Palmer, and about your amazing organization that you built with a team of amazing leaders. But give everybody just kind of a quick recap. How'd you get into the world of staffing and what led you to the business of opening up the Palmer Group and a little background?
Sure. Thanks, David, and good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity. Well, how I got into the staffing industry, I started my career out of college in public accounting and had a 10-year career in accounting outside of my home state of Iowa. And then when I relocated, I actually worked with a search firm at the time named Robert Half International. And that company had more difficulty placing me as an accountant, or had difficulty, but they basically offered me a job as a recruiter, which interestingly, I accepted sort of like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Not sure if that's really something I wanted to do because it was a career change for me, but it really was a career break for me too. They were very good to me, and I ended up working there for 10 years with a large, national firm, and started out, at the ground floor, and then was given opportunities to move up through the management ranks. And it was a really good opportunity for me. But that was my introduction to the industry. But I'd always wanted to start my own business and entrepreneurial at heart. And so just reached a point in my life where I felt it was the right time to do so. So I resigned, from that position and started my position at the Palmer Group, started my company, Palmer Group.
So you went and you went into the business of the staffing world, and you were with Robert Half for 10 years. Is that right?
Right, that's
So,
correct.
so are you working in the business, learning the ropes for 10 years, and then you decided to break off and do your own thing? I'm kind of curious, we talk about our 6 steps to success, one of them being, assessing a business's capacity to scale just to make sure that it has growth potential. Did you feel at that particular time that you were going to be more of a smaller organization, or did you feel like this was something, because I know that you have mentioned in the past that you wanted to build the premier firm in Iowa. So you must have had an idea of growing it to a certain level of success, but did you feel like that it could grow to what it is today?
I didn't, David, at the time. I didn't have that as a part of my business plan or my focus. I really just wanted to have a nice business, to be a high quality firm, and to generate enough revenue to have a nice lifestyle and to provide others too, my team members, with a good lifestyle as well. But no, over the years it just kind of continued to grow and expand. And from the time that I started that business in '98 until now, no, it's quite a bit different than what I imagined, at the outset. That's for certain.
So what was the big decision at some point you may have had some success that you finally decided that, wow, this thing's got some legs and we could really take it to becoming one of the dominant forces in the community or in the region. Was there a pivotal point in time where you finally just decided to grow it and make it into what it is today?
Yeah, good question. I can't recall any specific point in time of saying, okay, wait a minute, let's really turn the jets up and expand this. It actually was much more gradual, um, much more step by step, but there was you know, enough demand for our services out there that if we just continued to meet that demand and uh, and did so regularly, then we knew there was opportunity. I knew there was opportunity to grow, but I wasn't sure. We didn't set any specific goals at the outset to be the biggest, or any of that. I just wanted to grow naturally, and that's kind of how it took place all along, actually.
Where are you a planner by nature? Or are you somebody that likes to kind of set goals and milestones? Or are you more of the visionary and somebody else is more of the implementer or the planner that help guide the business?
Well, I think, at a certain point when I had maybe 12 or 14, people at our company, then I started thinking a little more, bigger picture, a little more strategically and setting more long-term goals. Up until then, I was pretty much focused year by year. But I think what happens is, at least in my case, you start to think about the not only the longevity of the company and the long term for the company, but I also felt an obligation to the people that worked with me at the company. And where is this going? And where are we taking this? And what is the ride that we're on? And when you start to look at it through their eyes, you sort of have, at least I did, a sense of responsibility to, okay, we need to get serious about some of this planning and forecasting. So you can legitimately look them in the eye and say, this is where I see this in 5 years or 10 years. And so that's kind of what pushed me along to be a little more of a, yeah, as you say, a planner, or, putting together a little more of a forecast out there,
Yeah.
for the long term, for sure.
So we work with organizations around utilizing a performance scorecard, identifying key performance indicators that are going to help them to keep the main thing, and to keep them on a growth trajectory. Did you have two or three things that you and your staff would look at as these are our key performance factors, and if we don't hit these numbers, we're not going to see the growth potential that we desire? Or did you have other ways of managing the people in the business besides just more metrics?
No, I definitely, managed with the use of metrics and primarily managing activities. Okay. And, I knew you were going to ask me a little bit about business planning and all of that. And I'll just mention, and I'll throw this up there because it's something that worked for me. Once I got to a certain point, Dave, of, okay, I need to think a little bit longer term. I put together a 5 year plan. Okay. And it was hard for me to go farther than that. It was really hard for me to even go 5 years, but, and I called it my strategic objective, and I wrote it out. I gave it a lot of thought. It was just me, but it did talk about, where I saw the company 5 years from then, what our revenues would be, what the different components of the revenue would be, how many people would be on my team at that point, et cetera, and some characteristics of our company too. And I laminated it, and I still have it today. This is the one I put together for 2010. So I put this together in 2005, and I carried it with me wherever I went. So that kind of, was always with me. And I did another one and another one. I'm just pointing out that kind of worked for me, and I would refer back to that. But from a day-to-day metrics standpoint, um, I did a couple of things that I think were extremely helpful to my company. Um, and as basic as this may seem, we tracked all of the activities for, like, calls and meetings with our clients. It could be interviews that we're setting with the candidates that we're recruiting. There's a few key metrics, okay? And I would track those. They would, and folks that joined our company knew that's how we operated. We were an activity-based firm. We had a meeting every Monday morning with the entire team, everybody except one of our administrative staff, and that person would answer the phone. We all sat in the same room. We put it up on the big screen, and we put everybody's metrics up there for everybody to see. And then we would talk about, did we hit our goals? Did we not hit our goals as a company? But inherent in there was, hey, Dave's really kicking butt with his activity, but Austin looked like he was, dragging last week. I mean, it's up there for everybody to see. So there was a certain amount of accountability every week. But we didn't only track activity, we also tracked revenue. and it was there for everyone to see. And we had goals for revenue every week. And those goals were a byproduct of the goals that we had set for the year as a company. We broke them down by week, we broke them down by quarter. We talked about how we're tracking towards reaching our quarterly goal or our annual goal. And so every Monday was a get together with the team to talk about how we're doing, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, et cetera. So it's a basic tool, but it was pretty effective to keep everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction.
Yeah, I love Stephen Covey has this quote that says accountability breeds responsibility, and putting it up there in a meeting and having discussions is a big part about just, keeping the team accountable. Is there anything, I'm curious about that 2010 vision statement, is there anything in that vision statement or plan that you created that was like the key thing that drove you on a daily basis? Was there any statement or goal or anything in there that was just something that drove you, got you up early, kept you up late, and just kept you really, putting the time and effort in?
Well, I hadn't read this in a while. I just
Yeah,
had.
I'm just curious if anything spoke to you that was kind of like
I,
the key
I,
factor.
yeah, I talk about, generally we're the most trusted and respected firm. We provide this service. We're going to have this many temporary employees and this many IT contractors working in 5 years. We're going to have this much revenue. We're going to have this much margin. But I do have a part in here that I think is key for me. And again, I was in the employment business, so um, I say here, and it's true, and I think this is true with almost any business. The people in our company are the cornerstone of its success. Employees at Palmer Group consider their association with the company more than just a job. They consider themselves an integral part of the company, et cetera, et cetera. That's how I built my business, Dave, and we were in the service industry, okay, but we practiced what we preach too, but I'm a firm believer that to the success that you have really good people that are plugged in and they're motivated and they feel, uh, they're a part of your organization, then you've really got a chance to do something special. If, on the other hand, they feel like it's just a job and they're really not that plugged in, then those are the types of competitors that we took business from. Those were the people that, we grew our business because of their turnover or because of their lack of commitment or because of their mediocre customer service or, whatever it was. If we just felt like, if we've got the right people and we're all plugged in and motivated, and that was my big responsibility as the owner to make sure that they truly were respected and appreciated, well compensated, but they were also tuned up when they needed to be, and they were pulled aside and talked to directly that, I need more out of you. I expect more out of you. Come on, let's go. Not, in a way, I was trying to develop them too. But that, of anything, that's how I built my business, was attracting and hiring and keeping and motivating and taking care of good and developing good people.
Yeah, I mean, you can assess a business and you can say, yes, it has capacity to scale. You can plan a business and you can build out the metrics and the KPIs and all that stuff. There's a soft skill of holding people accountable and, giving them recognition and also giving them that corrective strategy that needs to be given to a top performer or even a bottom performer that has big potential. And that's something that is oftentimes a fail forward type of strategy. It's not something that you nail the first time, but I think it was Peter Drucker that said, culture trumps strategy 100% of the time. And that culture of building a people first kind of organization was obviously a big part of your success. So let's talk a little bit about marketing, because I don't know exactly where your lead generation came from. Was it mostly referral, or did you have a decent marketing budget and generate leads for your salespeople?
Well, initially I had very little marketing budget, and I'm conservative by nature, so I wasn't out spending a lot of money on any sort of advertising or marketing campaign to start with. I started with one customer at a time. Hopefully that would be a repeat customer. Hopefully they would refer us to somebody else. That was kind of the marketing strategy, just to win them over with really good service. But yeah, over time, as we were successful and had some budget, then I felt it was appropriate to support a larger team to do more marketing. And we were in a relatively small market, with Des Moines, and so I just really focused on who we felt were the key decision makers for our business owners, or heads of human resources, or it might be the CFO or the president at a privately owned company, and where might we attract their attention. And you're familiar with the business record in Des Moines, the business,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these communities have those, and that was very well thought of at the time. And so I didn't have a huge budget. I wasn't going 19 different places. So we just focused right there on that particular periodical. And I featured my people in the ads with photos of them and quotes from them, talking about quality or commitment, or what have you. And it was a connection with the people in my company. And in some ways, some of them didn't like to get their picture out but in other ways, people kind of like that. Their friends would say, "Hey, I saw your ad," and this, that, and the other. So it had a little bit of a double edge, but it got us name awareness, and I think that helped. But it was a focused effort, and I didn't just do it for a week or two. I
Mm-hmm.
was committed to doing it for a full year. Like, I just want to do this, kind of like crack the rock, every week or every 2 weeks. There's going to be a Palmer Group ad out there that's featuring one of our people. So that's kind of the first part of marketing that I did. Then as we got a little bit bigger, and technology changed. Of course, we did a lot more of the digital marketing and those types of things, which actually is kind of beyond me. I can't even understand how some of that stuff works. And that was a little bit more targeted to the candidates that we were looking to attract. That's a little bigger audience. We might not even know who they are. Who are those people that are unhappy in their current position, or the really good performers, but they're not getting the opportunity. How do you attract them to call you and say, "Hey, I'm beginning to look for a job"? So that
Yeah.
type of.
Let's talk a little bit about that, conservative factor and spending money, because, what we talk to entrepreneurs about a lot is the fact that, to grow, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to do things that you maybe haven't done in the past, or you're going to do them at a much higher level than you've ever done them before. And that's going to create some fear. It's going to create some discomfort. There may be some things that kind of break in the process of growing, because if you just stay the same and you grow, a small amount, it's not as significant as if you have fast growth and you see changes that are taking place. And oftentimes it can push people in a position that may not have been pushed before, and that can push them out because they're just not wanting to grow. They don't want to grow at a higher level. So I'm just curious, when you were growing through investing more money in marketing and stepping outside your comfort zone in your budgetary allotments, maybe hiring new people, handing off a certain amount of advertising to something that you don't fully understand. Was there anything that was really instrumental in helping you to grow through those discomfort or those uncomfortable times?
Yeah, good question. And I am very conservative by nature. I mean, so uh, I really did not ever, what would I say, get completely uncomfortable financially. It just wasn't in my makeup. But I could see where, with additional resources, either additional human resources on our team, or with the support, whatever that may be, with marketing or additional office space, et cetera. I could see where we could grow. I could tell there was more. I kind of knew already, but I didn't know how well we would be accepted. Once we started to have success and we weren't able to keep up with some of the demand, that's what got me to think, okay, well, do you want to put more money at this? And so I guess I came at it from that way, Dave. I was pretty sure because we had the demand there and I was investing to meet the demand from a human resource standpoint first. And so it wasn't quite as risky, maybe from that perspective.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, you're always uncomfortable when you start adding, two or three more employees. You've got a lot of benefits to provide, and there's costs going on, and then in our case, we had, first it was 10, then it was 20, then it was 50, then it was 100 temporary workers, and they're working. I mean, there's payroll every
Mhm.
week, so you might invoice that payroll, but you're not going to get paid that maybe for 5 or 6 weeks. So now, now your receivables are out there growing. So you've got
Mhm.
to, I had to go to the bank. Luckily, I had good relationships with the bank, and they were good to me to provide a line of credit to at least get that first phase going. But
Nice.
but I didn't operate with a lot of debt for the last, I don't know, probably for the last 10 years. I didn't fortunately we didn't have any debt, but
Yeah.
that was the kind of the hard part for me. But so there is definitely some discomfort, but
Yeah.
for me it was measured, and I was pretty confident we were going to be able to grow out of it. So
And how big of a sales team did you have? I mean, did you have a floor of salespeople or just a few? What was the?
well, I guess at the I transitioned out of Palmer Group in 2016, and that the way that looked was that we formed an ESOP, okay? And so at that time we had about 80 or 81 internal employees, and I would say about 30 of them were what we called account executives, okay, or
Hmm.
salespeople
Right.
in the various disciplines. So, oh yeah, the sales and the business development was a big part of our business. I mean, it's a very competitive industry, the staffing industry. There's,
Yeah.
lots of staffing firms out there.
Did you
So,
hire experienced, successful recruiters, or did you train them up and kind of start them off as scratch and build them up as they went?
yeah, I opted to look for more successful, accomplishment oriented people,
Hmm.
period, first. I feel like those that have had success in the past are going to bring that mindset with them, whether it is in the staffing industry or not.
Hmm.
In and in some cases, we had to deprogram, people that had been with other staffing firms. We didn't do a lot of hiring of people within the industry in our market. There were non-competes. I had non-competes with my folks, so it would have been
Hmm.
completely hypocritical for me to do that. But we would have people relocating into town or what have you, and we did. We hired people from staffing firms elsewhere, but we did things a little bit differently than some other firms, and so in some ways you had to deprogram some of that and then train up again. But I I always looked for people that had already had a track record of success. They may have only had 2 or 3 years of experience out of college, but what were their successes in college? What were their successes in high school? Were they involved and accomplishment oriented somewhere along the way? I think those traits continue on. So
Yeah.
that's what I look for in
So
sales.
I don't know, were you involved in the sales management, or was that somebody else's responsibility with the 30 account executives?
Well, ultimately, it was at the end, we had sales leaders
Hmm.
that had account executives reporting to them. We called them division directors. But initially, no, I trained all the salespeople initially to start with until it just got to be too much for me. And
So,
I did that step by step. So I would bring in the first few people that I brought in. I mean, they would sit with me and just kind of observe either on the
mhm.
phone or we'd go visit clients and they were shadowing me.
Yeah,
And that's how I wanted to build to train them and develop them, was to observe how I wanted them to do it. And then we would talk about after the sales call, or the presentation or the phone call or what have you. And then ultimately, then the role got switched where I would go with them
mm,
and I would observe them and I would, shadow them, or I would listen to their phone calls. And we let everybody know that before we brought them into our company. This is how we roll. It's, we you're not going to be for lack of training or questioning it, but ultimately then when you feel a confidence, then you just turn them loose and let them go. Yeah.
yeah, good training model. Do it for them, have them watch, do it with them, and have them participate at some level, and then watch them do it and give them feedback, and then give them another competency, and then watch them train other people to do it, and then you've got real mastery. But in your sales leadership, if you could nail it down to one tip, I mean, a lot of the entrepreneurs that we're working with, the reality is that we're helping them to grow their sales team. And some of them haven't necessarily had sales teams, and so this is the first time that they're expanding beyond themselves, or they're expanding beyond their one salesperson or two or three. But if you could give one sales leadership tip, tactic, strategy that helped you to grow sales, what would be one of the best ones you could share?
Sure. I think, there's sometimes a connotation of a sale as just a transaction. And it is a transaction, and you feel good when you've made a sale, or when there's success. But to me, the real key is that success going to repeat itself with that customer?
Mm.
Might not be this year, might be next year. I mean, in the search business, hopefully, if we've placed a really good person with our client, they might not need us for a while, or maybe they have an opening in another area. But to me, that was what I really tried to instill: is we're building relationships, we're building trust, we're building a positive reputation. We might not even get the sale per se this time, but I want to leave this relationship or this encounter or this phone call or what have you with that person thinking this is a positive experience, because I want repeat customers. That's what I was
Mhm.
about. So that was what we really tried to instill, not the slam bam slick,
Yeah.
here's all that. I mean, you do need to get aggressive. You do need to be, comfortable hearing, sorry,
Mhm.
we've worked with this other firm for years and I'm never going to use you guys, or, whatever you're going to hear. You're going to get some rejection. That happens in sales all the time. I mean,
Right.
that's so, but you can still leave that with grace, and you can still follow up and say, keep me in mind if things ever change again. But long-term perspective was what I tried to
Yeah.
focus on everybody.
A good friend of mine is a sales trainer, motivational speaker, Speaker Hall of Fame guy, Jim Cathcart, and he has this great analogy of every relationship is an asset, and you make deposits into the asset, and then you can make withdrawals from the asset. Now, if you make a withdrawal before you've made a deposit, it's going to bounce, right? It isn't going to work out, from a financial perspective. It's just not going to connect. So you got to build those relationships, deposit into them. But if you never make a withdrawal, what's the use of the deposit? So
Right.
good analogy. So let's talk about. I got a few more questions for you.
Sure.
Leadership. Now, this is obviously a big topic for a short amount of time, but being a leader of, hundreds of employees and staff members, or I think you called them temporary employees. When you're leading a large group of people, if you could give an entrepreneur, business owner that wants to grow one leadership tip that will help them in the new year to grow an organization, what's the one leadership tip you'd share?
Okay. I would say lead by example. And to the extent that, and I tried to do that as best I could, I would have never asked any of the team members on my team to act or behave or do something different, than I did, or I tried to set a really good example. Um, and Dave, that meant for a long time I was the first guy in and the last guy to leave. And I was always there if there was an issue with a client or the buck stops with entrepreneurs. So you gotta be there to help whomever it is through whatever it is, whatever the issue is, and just constantly lead by example. I can't tell you how many people we talked to over the years. We got it from the other side.
Mhm.
People calling us saying, I don't respect my boss. I don't like working for my manager. I'm leaving this place. I mean, there's a lot of that goes on. There's a lot of really poor management. These people sometimes are very talented, very productive. They're firing their own company. They're firing their manager because they don't respect them. They don't feel appreciated. And basically, the people they work for aren't leading, at least giving the right example, I guess I would say. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Just lead by example.
Yeah. Well, we talk a lot about operational efficiencies, productivity, streamlining, and obviously building a business that has a high valuation requires a business that works because the business works, not because the business owner works all the time. So,
Right.
is there anything operationally that you put into place, or that your team put into place that really helped you to sleep better at night, or streamlined efficiencies, productivity? It could be a technological tool or a service that you subscribe to, or maybe it was documenting, standard operating procedures into a manual or into a computer file that helped guide future hires and training opportunities. But anything that's operational that you could share with the viewers today?
Yes, we had as we grew and we had repeat processes or things. Uh, we had a certain way that we wanted things to be done. Then yes, we documented those into what we called our Bible, basically, and this is how this all gets done at Palmer Group. That was, of course, part of the initial training. It would get revised, certainly from time to time, but and we managed toward that. It wasn't okay for you to say, well, I used to work over here, and so I'm going to do this a little bit differently here. And I know it's kind of working at Palmer Group, but I'm still going to do this. We just didn't do that, and that consistency, I think, helped us to be fairly efficient. And I was big about that. I didn't want to waste money on stuff that was inefficient. So, and then yeah, as we called it an applicant tracking system. Okay, so initially it started out, just with myself with paper and writing stuff down, and then yeah, we subscribed to an applicant tracking system that we would keep all the documentation you can manage on every single contact with a client company and the person at that company, every candidate that we're working with, and that but we're working with individuals. So when we've got 30, 40, 50 people at the company, some people are better at it than others.
Mhm.
And we just had to continually manage toward this is a part of how we do things here. And in order for us to be ultra successful, it has to be efficient. We have to have the info there in our system so we can all benefit from it. So I was a big one on operational efficiency. I had a really great CFO. She is still with the company. She had that same mindset. So she was really good about, laying down the law when things weren't done right. But we had, when you're processing payroll for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's got to be right, no errors, et cetera. You have to get things right operationally. So yeah, that was a big part of our success for sure.
Yeah. Well, I got two more questions for you. So,
Sure.
you decided to exit the organizational chart, still doing consulting with the organization and participating as needed. But anything that you could share with business owners that are looking at exiting the org chart in the next 2 to 5 years, strategies, tactics, methodologies, outside consultants that you leveraged that helped you in that process of setting up the sale because you sold it to your employees.
Right.
Anything that you would be able to share that was helpful or that you would look back and go, I wish I would have done this earlier, or wish I would have not done that.
Right. Well, yeah, so in my case, I reached a point where, I was working still, super, super, super hours. I mean, I was really intent, but I was just ready to transition and enjoy a different chapter in my life. So I went to a business valuation company that also did transactions that, and I knew a couple of the partners and just had an initial conversation with them about how this is what I'm thinking. How might this look? Um, and I was looking to get some consultation about how I might better position my company for a future transaction. And that's how that first started. And I learned a lot. I mean, um, I was all about the value being, partly in my people that were there, the long-term relationships that we had, the repeat relationships that we had. I mean, I still feel that's a huge value of
Mm-hmm.
but interestingly, it does focus a lot on what's your bottom line, how much concentration do you have with this client or that client, what's the multiple in the industry, um, and and of course there are other components that can affect the valuation, but in a big part of the valuation is your EBITDA and what the multiple is for your industry. So to the extent that an individual is looking, maybe I want to sell this 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, that would be what I would say is focus on your EBITDA. And I know owners are doing that now, but um, I think when you start to talk with a consulting firm that's going to market your business, you'll learn even more about how that EBITDA is calculated or what have you, and you can make certain decisions. Um, if you're going to be marketing that in a year, you might not want to invest in a new office in a new city or what have you, because it's going to take 2 years for that to become profitable. I don't know what the answer to that is, but
Right.
if you're thinking to sell, down the road, I think it would be very worthwhile for anyone to meet with a consultant, an M&A firm, whatever, and lay out your financials and say, okay, here's where I'm at. What do you think my business is worth right now?
Mm.
I think that would be very educational for most business owners, because I think a lot of business owners think it's worth a lot more than it is, or, maybe not. But I mean, I think there's just a real good check right there to know what it's worth. And then they'll kind of help you build more value into it for 2 years down there, 3 years down the road. Now, I did an ESOP, okay, and I was able to do an ESOP because I had a really talented, um, really plugged in, um, strong management team that I felt comfortable handing the keys over to, and they've done great.
Mm.
So if somebody wants to do that or be kind of a, what would I say, passive owner and just kind of sit on the sideline, that wasn't for me. As long as my name was on, well, my name is still in the company, but I mean, if I was the owner, I was going to be there. That was kind of the lead by example part for me. That's just for me. Others, maybe, and I know a lot of my friends are like, hey, I let them run it.
Mm-hmm.
Play just as much golf as you do, Austin. So what's your problem? It's
Yeah.
just a different style. But if you've got really good leadership there that can run it and you take good care of them financially, that works too.
Yeah, that's a kind of a bonus question. Would you have named it the same thing as the Palmer Group, knowing that at some point you were going to sell it and the name would go with the organization? Would you have done it
Yeah.
any differently?
Yeah, good question, Dave. I mean, I wasn't a big marketing guru, obviously. So here I am with the name Palmer Group and my firm, and it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Um, but it's okay. I mean, we've built up a brand now. It became way more than me a long time ago. So it's just kind of a brand that has stuck,
Yeah.
and they've decided not to change it. And probably a good decision not to. Ultimately, it might get changed. Who knows? But
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about the some of the labor that goes into scaling a business and growing profits and growing revenue. Now let's talk about the baby that comes from that. You've been able to enjoy some golf. You're down in Arizona right now, getting away from some of this cold central Iowa weather. Talk a little bit more about kind of what life is like after the exit, and what are you able to do now? What are you able to put your time into? And is there anything that's exciting for you that's keeping you just as excited about getting up in the morning and doing life now that the business is no longer the number one focus?
yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I've been fortunate because I have been able to stay connected with Palmer Group. I'm on the board, and pretty active board members. Still have a great rapport with the president and CEO and a number of the leadership team. So there's a connection there, but I can sort of have the sort of the consultative type of discussion, and then I can leave, and those guys can take care of it. So I am fulfilled that way still. I'm proud of the company. I mean, I'm proud of what we've built, and I'm fortunate to be able to be a part of it still. That's another byproduct of the ESOP, I think. I do some consulting. I don't do a ton, but I've got I enjoy the succession planning consulting, and I enjoy it for primarily for privately owned smaller businesses, kind of like mine. And so I enjoy working with owners that are thinking about that, asking them some of the tough questions, whether it be about their children or other key employees, and are they ready? Are they not ready? And a lot of times I figure out, those people are ready, but this person that says they kind of want to be just a passive owner, they really don't want to be that passive. They
Hmm.
it's hard to just give it up. So I enjoy doing some of that consulting, but I also do enjoy a little bit of charitable work, and I'm very involved with the one organization we talked about recently, the Harvest Academy, which a good friend of mine started and operates, and so that's fulfilling for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on from success to significance is not something that everybody gets a chance to do. And it's an awesome opportunity to be able to talk with you about the journey. And thanks so much for sharing some of your day with us today and sharing some of your insights and experiences. And yeah, we wish you the very best in the future.
Well, thank you, David. Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity, and good to see you. Glad you're doing well, and happy holiday to you. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us with Austin Palmer. Excited to get a chance to talk to each and every one of you about your business's goals and where it is that you want to go. And as Austin said, begin with an end in mind. And that's another Stephen Covey quote, think about where you want to be in the next 2 to 5 years and start beginning to think about what that looks like as an organization and what it looks like as a valuation and what it looks like in terms of an operation, and reach out to us at growmyprofit.com. We'd love to have a conversation with you and share some of our resources. And if it's something that benefits you and it's a good fit, we can partner up and do it together faster, easier, and better than you can do it on your own. So thanks so much, Austin. Appreciate you, and look forward to talking to you soon.
All right.